In this video, we will be going over the Modern Pro Tour from this past weekend, September 26th through 28th of 2025, and we will go over what decks did well, what decks did poorly, and discuss the data comparing it to where the format was before the tournament began. Pro Tour Edge of Eternities has come and gone. Congratulations to Michael D. Benedetto Plummer for winning the entire tournament with Belchure combo. For a while now, a good portion of the community felt like Belchure was underrepresented in comparison to its power level as a deck. The pros seem to agree with this sentiment, so let's take a gander at where the format was before the tournament, and then what decks were registered at the Pro Tour. As you can see looking at these two graphics, Belchure was sitting at about a 7.3% meta share before the event. At the Pro Tour, it was a 15% meta share. Considering past Pro Tours, this may not seem as that large of an uptick, but this shows that, in a pretty diverse field, pros had confidence in a deck that has, which I have mentioned in past videos, has had an instant win button. More importantly, however, Belchure has decent to great answers to react to other players interrupting their strategy and to destabilize the opposition's game plan enough to eventually combo off themselves. An interesting takeaway from this Pro Tour was how the lack of effective graveyard hate led pros to believe that Esper Goryos was the best deck to sleeve up. As you can see here, 16.7% of the field was registered on this resilient list in comparison to a whopping 3.8% before the tournament. Most of this can be a direct evaluation pros had of the card Quantum Riddler. This card has shown itself to be a powerful threat and a great way to draw cards. With Ephemerate, it can be a 4/6 on turn 3 that draws you at least 2 cards, depending on the circumstance. It was such a consideration that Hall of Famer Yellow Hat, Gabriel Nassif, convinced multiple high-level players on his team to play an Azorius build of Energy Blink that relied on the card to keep digging for threats. Some other items of note: Eldrazi Tron saw a downtick in play, though was well piloted by Luis Salvato all weekend. Eldrazi Ramp saw a pilot almost make top 8. Boros Energy saw a downtick in representation. Combo in general was well represented, and because of this, Blue-White and Jeskai Control showed off and put up some impressive results by talented pilots. Let's take a look at the results of the weekend and how decks fared. Looking at the results, it is important to keep in mind how to read the data. Generally, the larger the line, the less reliable the data is. Of the same vein, the shorter the line, the more reliable the data is. There are many things that can be taken away from these results. I would first remove a certain number of the outliers, and I would also combine certain lists that are pretty similar. Some outlier decks I think performed pretty well would be the Broodscale lists. While Gruul didn't do as well, Mono Green and Golgari when it combined 22, 12, and 1. Next I would highlight, as I did earlier, the control lists. Between Jeskai Control, Azorius Control, and Jeskai Chant, these control lists really put up some decent numbers. While Jeskai lists had some access to Flage, their main plan was to make it impossible for opponents to attack or cast spells with the Isochron Scepter imprinting Orm's Chant, all of this while relying on Teferi Time Raveler and an impressive suite of counterspells and sweepers. Combined, the decks went 63, 47, and 5, and Azorius had a deck in the top 8 of the tournament. Izzet Affinity didn't manage to put up a list into the top 8, but it did go 76, 73, and 1. To top it off, a new version of the deck was formed from Magic Hall of Famer Shuhei Nakamura, which not only played with the general fast start of turn 1 Kappa Cannoneers and the like, but also played recently printed weapons manufacturing. It makes a munitions token that when that token is destroyed, it deals 2 damage to any target. Pair that with engineered explosives, and you have an instant speed way to combo off and kill the opponent seemingly out of nowhere. Of course, to get turn 1 Kappa Cannoneers, you do have to rely on recently printed Pinnacle Emissary, which makes a drone token for every artifact spell you cast after it, and you can warp Pinnacle Emissary as early as turn 1. Despite being the tournament-winning deck, Belchure combo, while also putting 2 lists into the top 8, really did not perform that well at the tour. Belchure had a sub 50% win percentage, going 135, and 159 for the tournament. As shown in the graphic, Belchure only had winning records against 3 of the top 8 decks, excluding itself. Another shocker, Boros Energy, one of the most played decks before the tournament, also had a rough weekend. It didn't have any players in the top 8, and won a combined 113, 148, and 1. Some of this was probably due to the emergence of all the control lists that were in the field, but in general, a lot of people knew that Boros Energy was a large piece of the puzzle in terms of the modern metagame and were prepped in the sideboard for it. Izzet Prowess had a wonderful showing at the tournament, going 38, 30, and 1 on the weekend. The deck also had a list make the top 8 and was the top seed of the tournament after the Swiss rounds. Being able to utilize Corey Steelcutter, the deck showed its ability to be faster than the most represented aggro deck in Boros Energy, by going a whopping 11 and 1 in those matchups. While it did not do as well into Goryos, the deck also had a winning record into Belchure combo lists, which, as mentioned earlier, were the second most represented lists in the tournament. Considering Simic Neoform combo was only 4.8% of the field going into the weekend, the deck managed to stick around and even place a deck into the top 8. The deck went 45, 54, and 1 on the weekend, so I wouldn't consider the deck to have done well per se overall, but it is hard to argue with the fact that the deck can win earlier than the other decks in the format, while also getting large threats on the board. The last few months saw the deck adapt to more pieces to be less of a glass cannon, and has been better for it. This is another example of pros appreciating a deck with an instant win button, while still having access to some interaction. Probably the best deck of the tournament was Amulet Titan. Continues to be one of the best decks in the format, but arguably is the deck with the largest barrier to entry. It takes the most brain power to play and is difficult to learn, as you can see with the different loops you have to do with Lotus Field, Aftermath Analyst, Shifting Woodland, and of course the Balanced Lands, Primeval Titan, all the good stuff. There are a lot of different lines to pay attention to, and a lot of things to be keeping on top of mind. Amulet Titan went an impressive 65 and 48, and also placed a deck into the top 8 of the tournament. I was also impressed with how Esper Goryo fared. It was the most played deck and still put up a 52% win percentage, going 182, 168, and 12. The ability to get Atraxa onto the battlefield as early as turn 2, and keeping it on the battlefield on turn 3 with backup to protect the card and force a negation and solitude is one of the many reasons Goryos managed to also get a list in the top 8 as well. Eldrazi also put up good numbers, with Tron going 88, 78, and 1, though the deck had no shot against Titan, going a whopping 0 and 13 in the matchup. Eldrazi Ramp overperformed considering its representation, going 43, 39, and 3. The deck definitely showed its power level. This being said, the deck had a rough go into combo matchups such as Belchure, of course the bane of Eldrazi's existence. Eldrazi Ramp still couldn't even get a win against Amulet Titan. While we can sit here and overanalyze the results, as I have done, it is important to mention how much Pro Tours are like a snake eating its own tail. Pros make educated guesses about the field while also considering what style of lists they are good at, while also trying to take advantage of decks that can exploit good focus play. The format is in the best place it has been in years. We saw that with a pretty spread out field of decks, both in the top 8 and in the overall plethora of players. Ultimately, pros that can maximize their ability to draft the format of the Pro Tour, and then can play tight matches of constructed with minimal errors, will make the top 8 of the tournament. Looking at the top 8 of the tournament generally will not give you a clear picture of how a format has evolved. It is important to look at the larger data. This being said, all of this will continue to change as the weeks progress. While your local meta may see an uptick in popular decks from the Pro Tour, that does not mean you have to scrap your plans on what you want to play. Take your idea, put powerful cards around it, and more times than not, you will find yourself having fun and winning matches. So now that the Pro Tour has concluded, what decks caught your eye during the Pro Tour? What ideas are you looking to test in your local metas? let us know in the comments below. As always, thank you all for watching, and we will see you all next week.